Alrighty guys, raise your hand if you're ready to talk about the most controversial Star Wars film to date. Keep your hands up if you think this is one of the best Star Wars films ever. Oh. What's going on, you guys? James here, and welcome to the last episode of Star Wars Rewind. Thank you guys for just going on this journey with me all the way from episode 1 to now, The Last Jedi, right before The Rise of Skywalker, which drops in theaters on December 20th. Guys, I cannot thank you enough for sharing these videos, liking them, going in the comments, having a discussion with me. Y'all are amazing, and I can't wait to drop my Rise of Skywalker review because I know you guys are gonna be there on day 1. And if you're wondering when that review drops, it's Wednesday morning. It's very early, but trust me, it'll be worth it. Now, if this is your first time here at the channel, welcome to Real James. Now, if you're wondering who that is, that's me. And I love talking all about movies, so I drop a new video each and every week. You're not going to want to miss out. Go ahead and hit the big red button below, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to tap the bell right next to it, because that's how you stay up to date with me when I drop anything new. Don't forget to like this video, share it with all of your friends in the galaxy, and in the comments below, let me know. Did Rian Johnson ruin Star Wars, or did he save Star Wars? Alrighty guys, let's waste no more time and hop right into Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. Released in 2017, directed and written by Rian Johnson, The Last Jedi takes place right after the events of The Force Awakens. This is the longest Star Wars movie to date. Like, the runtime is the longest. Now, the movie doesn't feel 2 hours and 21 minutes or however long it really was, but the movie is the longest, for good reasons though. Okay, so here's how this review is gonna go, because I already know you guys are raising up your pitchforks. I'm gonna talk about why I love The Last Jedi, and I'm just gonna come out the gates and say it. I love this movie. It's seriously one of the best Star Wars films that I've ever seen. I'll explain why. And then I'll address some of these controversial topics that people bring up about Episode 8. So going into this movie for the first time, I was really excited because it's Rian Johnson. I love what he did with Looper. I'm a huge fan of his work. I mean, I think what he does is bring a very unique take and a humane take to a lot of his characters, and that's exactly what he did in The Last Jedi. And I'm a big fan of what he did after the events of J.J. Abrams' The Force Awakens. The Last Jedi takes place right after The Force Awakens, and Luke is called right back into action. Against his will, of course, because he's super grumpy. I think that makes sense, but I'll explain that, I promise. The First Order has taken over the galaxy, and now it's up to Leia, Luke, Rey, Finn, Poe, and the rest of the Resistance to bring freedom to everyone under the First Order's control. So that's where we're at on the surface with The Last Jedi. But when you dive a little bit deeper, we're starting to get into this big conflict with Rey and who she is, and Kylo Ren and who he is, because he's not sure if he's gonna want to stay a Sith Lord or whatever he's gonna turn into, or fall onto the light side and become a Jedi. And there's this balancing act that Rian Johnson plays with. So it's not all about good guys versus bad guys, and the movie explains that even the good guys are bad too. So does Luke. So I'm not sure why so many people were upset that Luke pretty much held a grudge against the Jedi, because guys, the Jedi told you to get away from your feelings, to basically be a robot, and they let Emperor Palpatine rise to power. That's why he's mad. So I had no issue with him tossing the lightsaber and pretty much telling Rey to leave, and he didn't want to raise up another Jedi, because guess what? Him raising up Ben Solo didn't go so well, did it? So it's a movie that allows Luke to kind of explore his past and right his wrongs. And let me tell you, Mark Hamill is the man for the job. His emotions in this movie just bled onto the screen. And I'm not gonna lie to you, him and Adam Driver were like a tour de force, especially in that last scene. Speaking of Adam Driver, guys, I said it in my episode 7 review, but I'll say it again. I think he's the best actor in this Star Wars franchise. There's no one better than him right now. Of course, he's got some tough competition because Rey, played by Daisy Ridley, really goes through a lot of emotions. She goes just through a lot in general. I love that the movie really does address the question of who she is and who her parents are, because that's what she's longing for. So when she's training with Luke, and Luke tells her, hey, this island's gonna show you exactly what you want to know, which is who you are. And she goes into that hole and she goes into the House of Mirrors sequence, which is expertly shot. And she kind of learns that maybe she's all she's got in this world. That's an important plot turn, and I absolutely love how Rian Johnson wrote that sequence. And guys, I love that Rian Johnson understands Star Wars maybe more than any other director that's taken control of these films to date. That space intro, oh my gosh, that battle was amazing. I mean, I've never seen anything like it, and guess what? That's not even the best space battle. But all the scenes scenes in space and everything shot on land really couldn't have been done without cinematographer Steve Yedlin, who actually works with Rian Johnson on pretty much all of his films. Let me tell you, he is top 3 cinematographers ever, for me. I mean, I'm a huge fan of everything he's done, and not only that, he knows how to shoot so well on film. A lot of people are taking up digital, and I get it, that's great, but film is so important to me, and I love that some of the scenes in The Last Jedi, you can just tell has a little bit of a grainy effect. It's really nice. And yes, if you're wondering, this is the most beautifully shot Star Wars film. It even goes above The Force Awakens. So I'm just very thankful as a fan that we get a 1-2 punch with The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, because I said Episode 7 was the most beautifully shot film. Episode 8 takes the cake. Now, there is another dynamic that the film plays with, and that's the relationship between Finn and Rey. Now, guys, John Boyega is fantastic, and I love everything that he's pretty much been in, except for Pacific Rim, but we're not gonna go there. And I found it really heartwarming that the first words out of his mouth when he wakes up from his coma, I mean, the guy was knocked out for a while, is, "Rey, where's Rey?" It's amazing just to know that their friendship is alive, and I'm hoping that they do get together, because guys, I'm still putting my money on them. Come on. Now, the movie is also a very smart film. I mean, Rian Johnson pens a script that plays with a lot of themes that are really big and things in the middle, like subtle bits of humor that you might get annoyed by, but it makes a difference for the characters, or little bits of just interaction, maybe just a look or a head nod, and they make a difference. I think these themes are really great, and that's what really separates Episode 8 from the pack. And also, thank you, Rian Johnson, for allowing Snoke to really be as menacing as I basically thought he was gonna be. Andy Serkis does an amazing job with his mocap, but not only that, I think he's just an arrogant guy. And everyone's like, oh, he died so easily, what in the world? It's because he was getting cocky. Snoke thought he had everyone dead to rights, even Kylo Ren, but nope. Kylo showed him that he's a little bit smarter and he's one step ahead of Snoke. And that's okay too, because guess what? The First Order is not the Empire. The Empire crumbled and its remains became the First Order, sure. But guess what? They're disorganized and they're a mess. But we'll save that discussion for another time. I'm a big fan of Carrie Fisher, of course, coming back as Leia, and she really does have this awesome role because she's not right in your face, but I love that she has that motherly effect. I mean, she's just really awesome in this film, and I do miss her a ton. I can't wait to see what J.J. Abrams does with that used footage from The Force Awakens in The Rise of Skywalker. And where are my Laura Dern fans at? Because guys, it was so awesome to see her in this film. When I first saw this film, I didn't even know she was gonna be in it, and then she came on screen. I turned over, I'm like, it's Laura Dern in the Star Wars universe. Alright guys, so let me go ahead and stretch a little bit because it's time to dive into all of the complaints I've heard about The Last Jedi and why I disagree with pretty much everything. Okay, so I don't understand the argument that The Last Jedi is too different. Now, The Force Awakens was pretty much a rehash of Episode 4, and there were a lot of similar themes to A New Hope. So fans were calling for a new film. Okay, fine. Here comes Rian Johnson with a very unique script, the most in-depth look at our characters yet, and also maybe the most layered approach to a Star Wars film ever. And y'all want to go ahead and rank on him. Now, let me tell you guys something. You can't have your cake and eat it too, right? He gives you a different film. It's a unique movie that takes a ton of risks. Sure, not every risk pays off. I don't really like what they did with General Hux. I'm not a fan of making him basically a pansy. He's not a very strong character anymore. And I don't like that they really took away from John Boyega's screen time. I felt that Finn didn't get a lot of those awesome moments that we got in Episode 7. But here's the thing. This movie needed to make room for Rey, Kylo Ren, and really Luke's character. All three of them together really needed to have a lot of progression forward for their characters. So making Luke grumpy, that's a risk that paid off because it makes sense. Wouldn't you want to just be left alone after you fail by bringing up Ben Solo? He literally kills Han, so now you definitely don't want to train up another Jedi. And you might be responsible for the First Order. Like, you don't want that past to come back and creep up on you. And it's great that he actually paid attention and said, you know what, Rey, I'm going to train you up because there's something good in you. So it all comes full circle, and I think his arc paid off. And for those complaining about Rey knowing the Force right away and being like a master Jedi, guys, the movie explains that the Force is in all of us. We all have it. We just have to train and get into the Force and what it can do for us. She did that. Rey surrendered basically her entire life to fighting for what's good and righteous, and the Force is with her. I mean, that's an amazing thing for the story, and I think it was very important. Hence the scene at the end of the movie, which not many people liked, where the boy uses the Force to get the broom. Hello, it makes sense, because guess what? Luke just explained, the Force is in all of us. I'm absolutely a huge fan of that concept, and I think that Rian Johnson taking that risk means he really does understand Star Wars. And then a lot of people were complaining about Rose. I love Kelly Marie Tran. In this movie, she delivers a very impacting performance. And why is it such an impactful performance? It's because her character is in it with 110% of her heart. So sure, she's thinking with her heart and she's not thinking logistics, but that line she delivers is probably the most powerful line that sums up not only this movie, but the sequel trilogy in a nutshell. So if you haven't guessed by now, Episode 8 is one of my favorite Star Wars films ever. I mean, right now, it's right behind Empire Strikes Back. And that's not a popular opinion, I get it. But this movie is a 5 out of 5 for me. Basically because of the cinematography, the acting, the amazing script, the thematic elements that this film delivers. And not only that, it advances this Star Wars sequel trilogy in a way that no other movie has so far. Because The Force Awakens didn't really do anything to push the movie forward. It was just go and destroy Starkiller Base. The Last Jedi evolved our characters, allowed them to grow, and gave us a more in-depth look at Rey, Kylo, Finn, and even Poe. So it's great to see that Rian Johnson not only understands Star Wars, but he crafted such an excellent film that I'll never ever get tired of rewatching, because every time I do, I get chills, I smile, and I just fist pump with every huge battle. It's fantastic stuff. And I'm so excited for episode 9, even more so after rewatching episode 8, because J.J. Abrams said in an interview that if it wasn't for Rian Johnson's script, his product, his final movie, episode 9, guys, would not be the same. So it's awesome. Alrighty, you guys, so that's the last episode of Star Wars Rewind, and I'm so glad I got to tell y'all that I love The Last Jedi. Now, not the best Star Wars film, but it's right behind Empire Strikes Back for me. You're gonna go off in the comments, aren't you? If you haven't already, go ahead and hit the big red button below, subscribe to the channel, like this video, share with all your friends in the galaxy, and don't forget in the comments to let me know, is The Last Jedi a masterpiece, or do you think Rian Johnson ruined Star Wars? Alrighty, you guys, again, thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you at the next screening.